There is a photograph that keeps appearing in old family albums. An old man standing in a yard, or beside a barn, or at the edge of a field. His hands are visible, cracked at the knuckles, stained with work that did not wash out entirely. And he is looking at the camera with an expression that is difficult to name. Not pride, something quieter. The expression of a man who knows exactly where he stands because he built the place he stands on. He knew things that most of us no longer know, not book knowledge, the other kind, the kind that lives in the hands and the gut and the slow accumulation of experience with real things. Fire, soil, iron, salt, smoke, cold, and the particular weight of a winter that must be survived rather than merely waited out. Somewhere between his generation and this one, a series of small trades were made. Why collect rainwater when the tap works? Why sharpen your knife when a new one is cheaper than the hour it takes? Why learn to read the sky when the phone already knows? Each trade felt reasonable. Together, they built something new. Men who are comfortable, well-fed, and genuinely helpless when anything breaks. This is a countdown of 25 skills that older generations carried as naturally as their own names. By the time we reach number 7, you will understand something about patience that modern life made obsolete. Number 3 says something uncomfortable about what it means to own something. And number 1 is not about any physical skill at all. Let us count down. Number 25. Collecting rainwater. Your great-grandfather positioned barrels beneath every downspout as naturally as he hung a coat by the door. The sky was part of the household system. Rain fell, barrels filled, the garden survived the dry weeks of August without a bill or a phone call. A single good storm could collect hundreds of gallons off a modest roof. Modern men let the same water run into the street and then pay for the water they need delivered. The rain has not changed, only the men beneath it have. Number 24. Starting a fire without modern tools. A man who cannot produce heat has always been, in the oldest sense, a man in trouble. The bow drill, the flint and steel, the knowledge of which wood accepts friction and which does not. Boys were taught these things not as hobbies but as basic literacy. Cold kills. Wet matches are useless. The skill is mechanical, specific, and learnable. But what it produces beyond the flame is something harder to explain. The quiet certainty that you are not entirely dependent on conditions being in your favor. Number 23. Sharpening and maintaining a knife. On most old workbenches, if you looked carefully, you would find a whetstone, worn smooth in the middle, dark with oil and metal filings from decades of use. Your grandfather sharpened his knife the way he checked the weather, not as an event, but as maintenance. A dull blade is genuinely more dangerous than a sharp one. When the edge is right, the tool goes where you direct it. A sharp blade was never just about cutting. It was about attention. And attention, once developed, migrates. Number 22. Reading weather from nature. Before the forecast percentage on a screen, men read the world immediately around them. A ring around the moon meant rain within a day. Swallows flying low meant pressure dropping. Certain tree leaves flip upward before a serious storm. The smell of rain on dry earth carries ahead of the front that produces it. These were not superstitions. They were observations made by people who had more at stake in the forecast than inconvenience. The sky has not stopped communicating. Modern men have simply stopped looking up long enough to listen. But here is the part nobody talks about. The skills that follow are not just practical, they are psychological. Each one represents a form of independence that convenience quietly took. Not by force, by offering something easier. And easier, repeated enough times, becomes the only thing a man knows how to do. Number 21. Growing food from saved seeds. In the last days of summer, your great-grandmother walked through the kitchen garden, choosing which plants would carry next year's crop. She saved the seeds, dried them, stored them in paper envelopes with penciled names. And every year, the plants she grew became more adapted to her specific soil and season. Seeds were inheritance, not products. The commercial introduction of hybrids that do not breed true changed this quietly. A man who saves his own seeds needs no one's permission to plant next year. That is a specific kind of freedom that is almost entirely gone. Number 20. Building and using a root cellar. Below the frost line, the earth maintains a stable, cool temperature year-round. Your great-grandparents dug into this fact and called it a root cellar. Vegetables, canned goods, hard cheeses, fermented foods, all of it kept through winter without a single watt of electricity, without a monthly bill, without a compressor that could fail. They descended in November with empty hands and came back up with food. The old cellar was not primitive. It was independence dug into the ground, and it worked exactly as reliably as the earth itself. Number 19. Smoking meat. When an animal was slaughtered, time became the enemy immediately. Older men solved this with smoke, salt, and patience. Low heat over hardwood drives moisture from the surface of the meat, and moisture is what bacteria require. The smoke deposits compounds that inhibit spoilage further. Done correctly, smoked meat keeps for weeks without refrigeration. Your grandfather knew which woods burned clean and which left bitterness. He knew the look and color of finished meat before he tasted it. That knowledge took years to build and produced results that no commercial process has fully replicated. Number 18. Making bone broth. After the roast, your grandmother put the bones in a pot, not the trash, the pot, cracked if she could manage it, to release the marrow, water, a splash of vinegar, whatever vegetable scraps were on hand. She let it simmer for hours, sometimes overnight. What came out was a dark, rich liquid that gelled when cooled, proof of what the bones had held. She used it as the base for everything. Modern kitchens send the same bones directly to a landfill and then pay a premium for the same liquid in a small glass jar. Nothing changed about the bones, only the knowledge of what to do with them. This is where convenience stopped being harmless. Each item from here forward represents not just a lost technique, but a lost relationship between a man and the things that keep him alive, and between effort and the particular confidence that only effort produces. Number 17. Repairing clothes. Your grandmother owned a darning mushroom, a smooth wooden form for holding socks steady while she wove new thread across the worn heel. She patched trouser knees, restitched seams, turned worn shirt collars inside out to extend them another season. Nothing left the house until it truly could not be saved. Modern clothing is designed to be replaced. It is cheaper to buy new than to mend, and so men own more, feel less, and maintain nothing. The skill was never really about the clothing. It was about the standard a man kept with his own possessions. Number 16. Fixing simple tools. When the handle of a splitting maul cracked, your grandfather found a straight piece of ash, shaped it, drove it home. He knew which wood made the best handles and why. He resharpened saw teeth with a triangular file. He replaced the vial in a broken level. He knew the tools he worked with the way you know your own body, because he had repaired them, and repair requires understanding. Modern tools are often engineered against this. Plastic handles, welded blades. The message inside the design is not maintenance, it is disposal. When a man can fix what breaks, he stands differently in the world. Number 15. Cooking with cast iron. A properly maintained cast iron pan will outlast the man who owns it. Your grandfather knew this and treated the pan accordingly. Never washed with soap, dried on the stove, wiped with fat before storage. The seasoning that built up over decades of this care was more effective than any synthetic coating and improved rather than degraded over time. Modern cookware is largely disposable. Non-stick coatings scratch, degrade, and get replaced. The cast iron asks only one thing: that you maintain it. In exchange, it serves you for the rest of your life and then your children after that. And this next one explains more than most men want to admit. Number 14. Making vinegar from scraps. Apple peels, overripe fruit, the last of the cider. Your great-grandmother put these in a crock with water, covered it with cloth, and waited. Wild yeasts converted the sugars to alcohol. Bacteria converted the alcohol to acid. The result was vinegar, sharp, live, useful for preserving food, cleaning, and a dozen other things. It cost her nothing beyond time and the willingness to see value in what others would discard. The skill is not the chemistry, it is the orientation. The refusal to see waste where there is still potential. That refusal was how older generations lived well on very little. Number 13. Using wood ash. When the fire burned down, the ash was collected, not discarded. Hardwood ash contains potassium, calcium, and phosphorus. Scattered on the garden, it fed the soil. Mixed with water, it produced lye for soap. Packed around eggs, it extended their shelf life through winter. Sprinkled in the outhouse, it controlled odor. Used as a mild abrasive, it cleaned cast iron. One fire produced multiple useful outputs. Nothing was wasted because older people did not see waste where there was still material. Modern men bag their fireplace ash in plastic and put it at the curb. The fire always has something left to give. Number 12. Using honey for wound care. Historically, this is framed as old household knowledge, not medical advice. Before the pharmacy, households reached for raw honey, dark, unfiltered, direct from local hives, for cuts and burns. Older women applied it before bandaging because wounds treated this way tended to heal cleanly. The mechanism is real. Honey draws moisture from bacterial cells, produces small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, and seals the wound from the external environment. This knowledge did not disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because commercial alternatives arrived with institutional backing. The honey always worked. It simply went unfashionable. Number 11. Foraging edible plants. Your grandfather walked through the landscape and saw food in it. Ramps pushing through leaf litter in April. Morels at the base of dying elms in May. Watercress in cold spring water. Wild plums in August. He was not a survivalist. He was locally literate. He knew the specific plants in his specific territory the way you know your own kitchen. Modern men walk through parks and forests seeing nothing edible. Not because the food disappeared, but because the knowledge of how to see it has. The land around you is still offering. The language is still there. Most men simply stopped learning to read it. Here is where the old world starts to look genuinely inventive. Number 10. Making soap from fat and ash. After hog slaughter, your great-grandmother rendered the fat and combined it with lye water she made by percolating rainwater through wood ash. She cooked the mixture slowly, watching until it thickened and reached trace. She poured it into wooden molds and let it cure for weeks. The soap she produced was not uniform or dermatologist tested. It was effective, long-lasting, and purchased from no one. To make soap from scratch, you must understand materials, timing, and patience. Modern men buy soap in plastic pumps and give the process no thought. The gap between those two men is not chemistry, it is awareness. Number 9. Preserving eggs. Chickens lay abundantly in spring and slow to almost nothing in winter. Your great-grandmother understood this cycle and prepared for it. In peak season, she lowered fresh, unwashed eggs into a crock of sodium silicate solution, water glassing, which sealed the shell's pores and kept the eggs usable for up to a year without refrigeration. The unwashed egg carries a natural protective bloom that commercial processing removes. She knew what commercial processing has since forgotten. Modern households refrigerate their washed eggs and replace them every few weeks. The knowledge of how an egg actually works and what it is capable of has simply been lost. Number 8. Drying herbs. Look up in an old farmhouse kitchen photograph and you will often see them. Bundles hanging from the rafters, sage, chamomile, yarrow, lemon balm, harvested just before flowering, when the oils were at their peak, hung in moving warm air for 2 to 3 weeks, then crumbled into jars. Your grandmother knew what each one was for, not as folk superstition, as practical knowledge passed down because it worked. The rafters were the medicine cabinet, the spice rack, and the garden's winter extension simultaneously. Modern households keep a jar of expired oregano in the cabinet and call it done. The window where these herbs grow may be right outside. Number 7. Filtering water with sand and charcoal. Before filtration tablets and hollow fiber membranes, men produced clean water using what the earth provided. Gravel at the bottom for drainage, sand in the middle for particle removal. Activated charcoal near the top to bind organic compounds and certain contaminants. Water poured through the top emerged measurably cleaner from the bottom. A slow sand filter also develops a biological layer that consumes pathogens over time. A living filter that improves rather than degrades. Your grandfather may have known this not as science, but as practice. Clean water was made with earth, fire, and gravity. The knowledge required no institution, only attention. Number 6. Using every part of an animal. When an animal was slaughtered, everything was used. The muscle meat, the fat rendered into lard, the bones boiled for broth, the organs eaten fresh, the intestines cleaned for casings, the blood made into pudding, the hide cured for leather. By the end, what remained was genuinely very little. Because older people understood at a level below philosophy that an animal's life was not a small thing, and that waste was a form of disrespect. Modern meat consumption is entirely abstracted from this. We eat only the muscle, wrapped in plastic, with no knowledge of what the rest became, or that it ever was anything at all. Number 5. Navigating without GPS. Your grandfather could tell you which way was north, not approximately, exactly. He built his spatial understanding over decades of moving through familiar territory with his eyes open and his attention functional. Dead reckoning, topographic maps, star navigation, the sun's angle at noon. These were not advanced techniques. They were literacy. The most dangerous thing about GPS navigation is not that it fails. It is that it prevents the brain from building spatial knowledge in the first place. You arrive somewhere, guided every turn, and could not retrace your route without the device. He arrived somewhere and knew exactly where he was. Number 4. Building a simple shelter. The forest was not empty. It offered structure to men who knew how to see it. A dense stand of mature evergreens already blocks wind and sheds rain. A hillside reflects heat from a fire. A fallen log anchors a lean-to. Pine boughs layered from the bottom up shed water like shingles. A debris hut stuffed with dry leaves traps body heat with the efficiency of insulation. These were not wilderness tricks. They were the baseline skills of any man who worked outdoors before the highway made everywhere reachable by truck. The forest does not withhold its materials. It simply does not explain them. Number 3. Repairing shoes and leather. Your grandfather did not think of boots as a seasonal purchase. He thought of them as an investment, expected to last a decade with proper care. He conditioned the leather with fat to keep it supple. He restitched the welt when it pulled loose. He soled them himself when they wore through, using a cobbler's last and waxed thread and a curved needle. He owned some of those boots for 10 years and intended to own them for 10 more. His boots told the story of his life. He made them last long enough to be worth the telling. Modern boots are designed to be replaced by next season, so they are. Number 2. Storing food without electricity. Salt draws moisture from bacteria through osmosis, and without moisture they cannot survive. Fermentation creates lactic acid, making the environment too hostile for pathogens. Sugar in high concentrations does the same as salt. Drying removes water. Smoke deposits antimicrobial compounds. Each method works on the same principle: understanding what spoilage requires and removing it. Your great-grandmother did not study microbiology. She had results across generations. Her root cellar shelves in November held the summer's work: salt pork, smoked ham, fermented beets, jarred tomatoes, dried beans, and cured eggs. She fed her household from September to April without a single degree of electrical cold. Number 1. Being comfortable with silence and hardship. And here at the end, the one that explains all the others. Not a technique, not a recipe, something older. The capacity to be present with difficulty without immediately dissolving it. Your great-grandfather sat with discomfort because the world offered him no reliable escape from it. Long winters without entertainment. Weeks of labor before any result was visible. Waiting without the ability to fill the waiting with something else. Over time, he developed the thing that modern convenience has quietly and efficiently engineered away: tolerance for the ordinary difficulties of existence. A man who cannot be alone with his thoughts cannot know his own mind. A man who cannot tolerate delay cannot build anything that requires long-time horizons. A man who runs from difficulty every time it appears will never know whether he was capable of something more. Older men endured because they had no other option. The endurance made them capable. The capability made them calm. Not because they were built differently, because they were denied the exits that modern life now offers at every turn. Silence did not make them empty. It made them strong enough to hear themselves think. 25 skills. But beneath all of them was one simple idea. Older generations were not extraordinary because they knew more. They knew more because they were forced to stay with problems long enough to understand them. They fixed things, they waited, they endured. And in doing so, they developed a kind of steadiness that modern convenience quietly made optional. That quality is not gone. It is only sleeping. Which of these skills do you think we most need to recover? Leave it in the comments. And if Forgotten Ways speaks to something in you, subscribe. There is more where this came from.